So I'm just going to dive straight into this podcast. Very little intro. I'm sitting in my car. I'm early at work, and I thought, let me slide one in. Let me get an episode in, because I think I've had some reflections over the most recent incident in America. It's almost on a level of the George Floyd incident, with the young man that was chased down by the murderous Memphis Five. And I remember sitting at my TV it was on the phone actually, and I said, no way. And I sat at my phone and I saw that it was 5 black officers, right? Now, I just want you to bear in mind, I'm speaking to you as a social worker. Okay, it's important to understand where I'm coming from as a social worker, like a black man and social worker, a black dad, West Indian heritage, all of that. I just want you to get the lenses and that I'm speaking through here. I saw this and I was gutted, because I said to myself, this is interesting. Now, it raises issues. There were 5 officers, and it raises issues to say, actually, then what was everything else about? When we screamed the racism, was it racism? Now, I can't cover everything in this episode, but when I saw that it was 5 black men, I was somewhat surprised, but at the same time I realized, actually, racism isn't so simple after all. I'm going to read to you a poem about the incident. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 black men. And I'm going to go into something here. Ask some questions, because I do like to ask questions that are critically reflective about what we're looking at. This is the poem. It's coming from the OG Post 215 on Instagram. It says, 5 Memphis police, all with black skin, committed the ultimate sin of thou shalt not kill. Even still, savagely, they chased down Tyree, one man trying to flee from a traffic stop. They're calling routine, but now it's a murder scene. And still, we haven't seen why they beat that man that way. Call it what you may, police brutality, post-slave mentality, racial insanity, or just more inhumanity, born out of self-hatred. That's a point I'm going to get to. Self-hatred, like Malcolm X stated, who taught you to hate the color of your skin. I'm asking these 5 black men who once wore blue, doing what white in hooded robes used to do. And voila, I'm telling you, time will tell. If 5 cops go into jail, which I think they will bring Tyree Nicols back, especially when being black means justice will not be served until Africans conjure up the nerve to look our oppressors in the eye. And if all of us must die, then may we let them know before we go exactly what we're dying for. People, this has raised an issue. Hats off to that poem, by the way. This has raised an issue because my wife and I were talking about this, and it made me think, well, what was Black Lives Matter about then? Was that about racism, or was it about more than racism? Was it racism and? See, I've always queried the general populist approach to this situation of discrimination, racism. It needs a wider discussion. And I'm going to reveal something to you that I think is crucial to looking at what racism is about, when you see your colleagues at work, when you see young minorities, or just say black, whatever black means to you, when you see black people that you are supporting as service users, what I want you to expand what you see. And the one way that you can expand what you see is by hearing what I have to say. Not just me, but the voices of other people too. That's the way that you can understand what you are seeing, understand who you're working for. I put out TikTok posts regularly, and the last few have been about race and racism. I had a really good discussion with Emily Pierce, whose post is the most popular on my channel, on my TikTok channel, and possibly on my Instagram as well. And it raises the issue of going a little bit past the common narrative of racism. I don't feel comfortable just saying racism. I think racism is a complex issue that needs discussion. It's more. So when I asked the question, what about Black Lives Matter? Actually, it was more than he was just black. Because I would guess that Derek Chauvin was not someone who hated black people. I would bet a good amount of money on that fact, on that notion. But like my discussion with Emily Pierce, who says actually there are some underlying prejudices that may fuel what racism is about. And so Black Lives Matter is on its back foot now, because we have to ask the question, well, what else was taking place? And probably you might find that there is a more serious issue, a more detrimental systemic issue that also features racism, but is a bit, it's, okay, let's go. Let me go there. This is the thing I was going to talk about. So I grew up in a time where it was coming to the end of overt racism. So born in the 70s, yeah? And so there was racism more so in society, but my memory of it really only appears in the early 90s, when I'm more self-aware, when I enter into college. And you start to experience, well, I experienced it as a child going to secondary school, but more, you know, by the general public, not by my school friends. There was blatant overt racism by friends who would pat me on the back and call me the N-word daily. Daily. And I'm not exaggerating, right? But it was acceptable because that's what I was, right? But coming into the world as an adult, 16, 17, 18-year-old, and experiencing it from then, and even abroad, I don't think it was just about race. I don't think that people who don't like people of my color only thought about, they live next door to people to minorities. You understand? I don't think everybody who doesn't like people of my color or uses issues around my skin color or my heritage only hate me because of that. They hate me because of that sense of difference, meaning that they may have a superiority complex, which is really one of the frameworks of slavery. The whole concept of slavery was built around a superiority complex. The natural order of things. What's your position in the world, in society? And so Derek Chauvin, when he put his knee on someone's neck, it wasn't because he was black. I don't think so. I think it was because he felt superior to him. He looked down where he was really employed to serve. And even working in youth justice, I'm working with young criminals, but I'm there too. And it's important to know, guys, we are there to serve them in their guilt, to rehabilitate and bring them to a different place, a place of reparation, a place of restoration. That's our jobs. That's our jobs as police officers. When a guilty man walks into a hospital, we have to serve him. That's the least chaotic way that society can function, is if we do not operate under a position of judgment or prejudgment, prejudice. But look at our prejudgment and our prejudice and say, what am I thinking? Which requires critical reflection. There's a movie out, but there was an experiment, the Stanford experiment. It gave, and look it up, I don't need to go into it so much, but people were given positions of power and they abused it. This was a study conducted with members of the public who were volunteering their position as either prisoners or prison guards. Watch it. It's deep. And race may play a role, like your prejudices may contribute to an issue, but when it comes to racism and discrimination, it doesn't stand alone. It's about power. It's about self-preservation. It's about a sense of value. Some people's sense of value only comes from how high they feel over another, and some, their sense of value comes with how equal they feel. Or if they can make themselves even more humble and stand below you to serve you. But when we put uniforms on and are given guns or handcuffs or a hat, authority, we have to critically reflect. And I wonder how much of that takes place within the police. So when I look at the police, they're doing what they're trained to do, which is to stand over people. And the Stanford experiment shows that. Nowadays, we couldn't do experiments like that. But the level of abuse that takes place when there is no accountability, and accountability requires critical reflection, group discussions to explore how you feel about what you are doing and what's the outcomes. How can we do it better? We don't need a knee on the neck. We don't need that. Not for too long anyway. We don't need to chase anyone down. For a traffic stop. Okay, he got away. We'll get him another day. Do you know what I mean? But I want to look at something else as well. And this is something that came from slavery and hasn't died. Something I've seen myself. I've had these notions for a long time, and that is black people have been portrayed in society. In the earlier years, it's not happening now, not in the UK, but in earlier years as people to fear for various reasons, an extension of racism. But then when we watch that in the media, we are also, as black people, programmed to hate our own. There's a deep topic. So these police officers were chasing down this man as a criminal, and I think that they have prejudices the same as a white man who is prejudiced. The same, because they're in uniform, they're in positions of power, but they've also been programmed. Yes, I can tell you that that's how media has impacted my thinking since I was a child, because I grew up with this programming. I didn't grow up only with disadvantage. I grew up also to fear the same way as my white counterparts have grown up to fear. We come from the same society, we eat the same food and we watch the same things. We are both products of this programming. And so I think they saw him as lower, only because of the uniform, their sense of power, and also the fact that they were programmed. It's simple, possibly class, because uniform puts you in a different class socially. Not economically, but socially. And so there's a whole topic here of intersectionality, where you've got all these issues that are on the table, but we don't talk about all of them because they can be uncomfortable to talk about. And how these issues of class, race, power, identity, how they intersect, how they cross paths and where they cross paths. And the only way to understand it is to have these discussions, and they will be uncomfortable. That's why I have this platform. So when we are writing our reports and our assessments, and when we're working with whoever we're working with, we've got to reflect on ourselves to which is the best chance we have of making sure that we're doing our best to treat people with love and respect, whether we like what they're doing or not. You know, there we go. So unfortunate to the man, and condolences to the family. This has been happening too long. It's happening to thousands and thousands of families over the decades. In fact, I should say for hundreds of years. It hasn't stopped, and it will not stop, because there are so many people who choose not to reflect on their actions, but prefer to continue as they go on because they feel strong and powerful, because it's their value system. And we as professionals, we have to ask ourselves, or talk to friends and family, and talk to somebody who can hold you accountable and say, well, how's that working out for you? What did you think of him or her? You know, me having a badge as a social worker elevates me. It does. It's a badge. It's a professional qualification. When I step up to somebody's house, how do I see them? That's the challenge. That's the challenge, right? And if I'm feeling elevated, I'm in a dangerous place, because it informs how I function with these people. I shouldn't even say these people. Yeah, that's in my opinion, possibly a derogatory approach to people that are in need, you know. So there you have it. You know, if you want to contribute to the discussion, let me know. If you have topics, let me know. You can contact me on the socialworkrace@gmail.com, or you can get me through any of my platforms. Patreon, my Patreon channel, where I can support you directly with various things in social work, especially for the students. Big love to you all. Keep reflecting on yourselves, and that helps you stay safe in the role. I'm about to start work now. I've come early because I've got a lot to do. It's real out here on these streets. So look after yourselves.